So, as a
Yeah.
guy in the room
Yeah.
when this happened, like literally, it sort of went the other way, and it was, you think I'll start, because I don't want my story because it was the story, but 2007-8 we wanted to win Roubaix with carbon wheels. And we started doing all this research and study and trying to figure out how to get the wheels to survive. And what we realized quickly was that you just need bigger tires,
Yep.
right? Bigger tires at the right pressure than what the guys were riding. And so, the conventional wisdom at Roubaix was 24 millimeters dry, 27 millimeters wet. And when we started doing the study, and I mean, this is a huge moment, I think, in our sport, because it's the essentially the finding of this thing we call impedance. It was that as you lower the tire pressure on the cobbles, the riders go faster and faster, and then they would break the rims. And so those early days when we were just confused as to what was going on, like, well, everybody knows higher pressure is faster, but yet as we lower the pressure for comfort, they go faster. That doesn't make sense. And that was, our old mental model was that it was all about casing losses. And of course, as you're shaking the rider, you have what we now call impedance, which is, you have humans a pretty high hysteresis thing. You shake it, energy gets converted to heat. It's inefficient. The more you shake the human, the more losses you have. Well, there's a crossover point where you go from tire casing dominated to human vibration dominated. We call that the break point. Everything that's human shaking dominated, we call impedance, which is a term I stole from electrical engineering that describes losses due to like waveform. That's probably the simplest way to put it. So we discover this, and then it becomes, this thought of, okay, if the 27s are actually faster because we can run them softer, how big do they need to be? And you quickly learn that, if we do everything just right, we could run this test with a 30 as long as it measures exactly 30. And the bike has a little bit of extra length in the fork or a little bit of more clearance in the crown. And, you literally had to modify. We 3D printed these little half moon pieces that you could put in the dropouts to make the wheels sit just a little bit lower to clear that 30 millimeter tire. And we find that to our new model, it works and it's way faster. And then you go, well, what about a 32 or a 34? We have no way of even testing that, right? We need a road bike with disc brakes, and so long story short, we discover this. We put the science and the math to it. We develop all these really cool calculations and this special tire pressure gauge that's like $1,000, and Cancellara wins Roubaix the first year out on it. And the game has changed, right? I mean, the next year, everybody shows up on carbon wheels, thinking carbon wheels are the thing. Everybody breaks those carbon wheels, and the team. So I think for like 6 years straight, I did tire pressure for all the Roubaix winners, right? Which is part of why I get to do a lot of the stuff I do now. But in there was so people involved in that were also in the room. Gerard Vroomen, right, who sells Cervelo, and the first thing he does is goes and starts Open. And Open is sort of essentially the first gravel bike, but it's basically a large clearance road bike with disc brakes. And, and that really was like the people in the room for that project are really the people that significantly changed the industry in this direction. And I think it's that we knew that bigger tires were the future. And we knew that we couldn't possibly get there with rim brakes because one of the things so I get this all the time, why don't we just have bigger rim brakes? Well, the problem with a rim brake is it's only effective in leverage over really a pretty small range, like a couple of millimeters. And so, if the rims get wider and the calipers get wider, you then couldn't put smaller wheels back in, but you also couldn't put bigger wheels back in. And so the disc brake really freed the design to say, you can kind of think at the beginning of a technology, we don't know what that tire width really needs to be, and we don't really know what the rim width or shape needs to be. And so to give us the most freedom there, if we could eliminate that constraint entirely and put it down there, how do we eliminate that constraint? Oh, hello, mountain bike, you've already done it. and it works really well, and it's mature, and bike shops and mechanics and things know how to solve it. And so it was a really relatively easy decision to make. I think had this all happened 20 years prior and the answer looked something like cantilever brakes or U brakes or something, I don't think it would happen because those are
they don't work.
Just crappy solutions for road. And had we had to invent disc brakes or bicycle disc brake technology to get there, that wouldn't have worked either because it would have been too difficult and expensive with too little apparent upside at the front end, I think, for the companies to really invest. But because mountain bike gets a much more obvious solution set for those conditions, it just made sense. And so the tires drove that movement. And I have that argument with people, all the time. Oh, the industry's forcing us to disc brakes, and you're like, oh yeah, so you want 25 millimeter tires. Oh, I hate 25 millimeter tires. Well, then you drove the industry toward disc brakes because that was the solution for this. And I can guarantee, had the people in that room come out and said, you know what, we're going to go back to cantilevers, you would be 100 times more angry with us because they suck. I mean, let's just be honest. Complain all you want about disc brakes, but the older technology was far harder to maintain and set up and deal with than what we have now with disc brake technology. So yeah, I think